Hey there, Austin Meyer from Aviation and X-Plane, and today we are going to talk about the most boring subject in the history of subjects, barometric pressure. But let me try and make it a little more exciting for you. You've been flying at the wrong altitude the entire time, and once you find out why, you're going to keep doing it. Okay, so there's my hook to try and grab you and make this a little more interesting. A YouTube commenter recently commented to me, "Hey Austin, your GPS altitude in Aviation is different than the Garmin altitude on your Garmin PFD. What's wrong? Something must be wrong." This video addresses that comment. So here we go. Let's say, for example, that you are on the ground at this airport, which is at 1,000 feet above sea level, and the tower says, barometric pressure 29907. Well, you say, "Yes, sir, 29907, sir," whoop, 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 and put your little barometric pressure of 29907 in your Coldsman window. When you do that, if your altimeter is not broken, it will indicate exactly 1,000 feet in your airplane. And here's where it gets interesting. When is the last time you've listened to ATIS and they've said, altimeter 29907, lapse rate 1 inch per 1,000 feet? When's the last time they've given you that lapse rate? The answer is, of course, never. They never give you the lapse rate. But do you believe that the lapse rate in pressure as you climb is exactly the same every day? Of course not. And so what's so fascinating is when these guys give you ATIS, they give you the theoretical sea level pressure that you can enter into your Coldsman window, but they don't give you the lapse rate. So you have to assume something. You have to assume a standard lapse rate. So what is that standard lapse rate? Well, let's say that the scientists went and they looked at how the air pressure changes as you climb, and they found the average lapse rate encountered in nature. And let's just say we programmed that into our altimeters. What would happen? Well, let's say that this guy is following the average lapse rate. That's what's coded into his altimeter. And let's say it's an average day. He indicates 5,000 feet on his altimeter. The mountain goes up to 5,000 feet, and so he just barely brushes over the top of the mountain. Everything happened exactly the way you would think and exactly the way he planned. Hopefully he looked on a sectional chart, saw the mountains up to 5,000, and when he decided to fly at 5,000, it was to brush his little belly on the top of the mountain, and that's exactly what he did. Now, let's say it's an unusually low pressure lapse rate. Okay, the pressure isn't really changing. It's not deteriorating as fast as you climb up due to pressure or humidity or whatever it is. Well, this guy in the green airplane, he's got his 29907 entered, just like the tower said. His altimeter is indicating 5,000 feet, and that's what he wants to do because everybody wants to brush their belly off on the tree branches on top of this mountain, say. This guy sees 5,000 feet on the altimeter, and what's he going to do? He's going to sail right over the top of the mountain. Because the pressure lapse rate is lower, he had to go up a little higher to get that altimeter to indicate 5,000 feet. So far, nothing too bad has happened. Now let's look at this poor guy. He's flying on the other half of the time. Remember, if half the time it's a low lapse, then half the time it's going to be a high lapse. One day the pressure decreases a little more quickly with altitude than normal. This guy dutifully enters 29907, just like he was told. He flies perfectly at exactly 5,000 feet, just like his altimeter is showing, and he flies perfectly. And what's he going to do? He's going to wind up right in the base of the mountain because the lapse rate is not standard that day. It's a little higher lapse rate than normal. And so this is what aviation would look like right here if we used the average lapse rate found in nature coded into our altimeters. We would half the time be lower than we thought we were. In other words, every time we took off, it'd be a roll of the die, or are we going to be lower than we thought? And if that was the case, and we looked at a sectional chart, and we said, oh, maximum elevation in this sectional chart is 5,000 feet. Or, oh, that mountain peak goes up to 5,000 feet. It's all charted. It's right there. I'll fly 5,010 feet, and I'll just barely clear it. Your altitude might be off by 100 or 200 feet if the lapse rate isn't standard. And you're going to hit the mountain, even though according to the numbers, you should have just barely made it. That's not the aviation world we want to live in. where half the time we're lower than we thought. And so what did they do? They coded the altimeters for the most pessimistic possible pressure lapse rate. You see, they coded the altimeters assuming the highest possible lapse rate that you would ever find in nature. And so as a result, since the pressure dissipates at different rates as you climb on different days, they chose a pressure lapse rate coded into the altimeter that is like the worst possible case. And so you're always going to be higher than you think you are. And in the worst possible case, you might be maybe at the same altitude you think you are. But the other 99.999% of the time, we're higher. And so for our entire aviation lives, we've been flying at a higher altitude than we thought. Now, GPS doesn't care about any of this. GPS just gives the most accurate altitude it can. It has nothing to do with air pressure. It has nothing to do with lapse rate or barometric pressure or anything else. GPS is just the most accurate number it can be. So why don't we hop in my bird and let's run an experiment here. Let's record the difference between GPS altitude and air data altitude for a quick climb to, let's say, 18,000 feet. And let's see what those differences are.
Okay, so I've given you a nice wide view of the cockpit here for engine start, why not? We have ground power off, battery 1 and battery 2 on, generator off, alternator off, DC power off, door seals on. That's going to pressurize the airplane. Well, it's going to keep air from escaping anyway. The door seals are going to run, and we're going to wait till those door seals get through their little cycle to really lock down the air inside the airplane so none can get out when the pressurization system engages. Make sure the throttle, prop, and mixture are all aft. Igniter on, fuel pump on, starter engage. Once we have as much RPM as we're going to get from the starter, we engage the fuel. My start limit is 1,000. My normal start is 900. Normal start limit on that temperature. Now we advance the prop to give ourselves some RPM. Listen to the prop come up.
Now we go to high idle, so we have enough engine RPM to drive the air conditioning. Now we bring on our generator and our DC power. I can go igniter off, since I'm pretty sure the engine's running now. Power on, we go to breaker control, HVAC, pressurization, fan, and air conditioning. Low on, all air conditioning vents open. We go to pressurization control screen, bleed air on. Now that we have DC power, we can raise the flaps. We see the flaps coming up. And I'm going to set my trims. Rudder trim and elevator trim. Off the brakes and away we go. Okay. Short the runway, we're already ready to take off. The flaps come down. We have ground power off, batteries on, generator on, alternator off. We only want one of these two, either generator or the alternator, not both, and they argue over who's providing the voltage. DC power on, which is these systems. Door seals on, igniter is off because the engine is running, but our backup fuel pump is on. Lights are off, bleed air is on, emergency cabin pressure dump is off. Flaps are set, de-icing system is off. The trim is set, rudder trim set, elevator trim, and flaps are set for takeoff. This bird's ready to fly. I'm going to call Columbia Metro from the ground to ask for an expedited climb. Columbia clearance, experimental 844 X-ray.
Good morning, experimental 844 X-ray, Columbia, how can I help you?
Hi there, Columbia, experimental 844 X-ray today via Bar Lancer Evolution. I'm on the ground at Owens. I'm about to take off for 1-3. I'm wondering if I may please climb to 5,000 feet, transitioning your airspace.
Number 844 X-ray, on departure squawk 0257, maintain VFR at or below 5,000. I do have Cessna 172 VFR, currently 6 miles north of this field, transiting southbound at 5,500 feet. Transition to the Charlie will be approved. Altimeter 3003.
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much. Experimental 844 X-ray. I will go to 5,000. I'll be watching out for the Cessna at 5,500. Squawking 0257, altimeter 3003. I'll switch to advisory, and I'll be back with you in 30 seconds.
Thank you. All right.
Oh, it's traffic. Experimental 844 X-ray taking 13 at Owens. And now we add power, and the temperature comes up as we dump in all the fuel. Then the temperature comes down as the turbine spins up and lets in more air. So we feed in power as that turbine spools up. Doesn't take as long to get airborne, does it? You're up, flaps up.
Traffic, 12 o'clock, same altitude, 0 miles.
Oh, it's traffic. Experimental 844 X-ray departing the pattern to the southeast. Now we took off at about half power. The actual engine goes to a lot more torque than indicates on the gauge because I have the Dash 42 engine in here. The Garmin's are set up for the Dash 135s. Right, so now we're going to feed in as much power as the Dash 135 VT6 can put out, which is 750 horsepower. Since this is an 850 horse engine, it wants to put out more, but I'm going to honor the published limits here. We're right at the limit of a Dash 135 Pratt Whitney. 750 horses, even though my engine wants to put out 850 horses. Okay. We're going to climb, and I'm going to contact Columbia Metro. Hello, Columbia. Experimental 844 X-ray with you through 3,600.
Experimental 844 X-ray, clear departure, IDEN, altimeter 3003, stay on course heading.
Experimental 844 X-ray identing, and I would like to just make a turn to the north for some maneuvering as I climb.
844 X-ray, radar contact, 900 miles southeast of Columbia Metro, maintain VFR at or below 5,000 and resume navigation.
Okay, 844 X-ray, resuming no navigation. I'd like to cancel all services now that I'm clear of your airspace, please.
844 X-ray, roger, there's traffic off here 8 to 9 o'clock, so about 4 miles southbound VFR, 5,600 Cessna 172.
I'm sorry, can you say his location again, please?
844 X-ray, traffic off here 9 o'clock, so about 3.5 miles southbound, 5,600 Cessna 172 VFR.
Okay, 844 X, I've got him on the fish finder, and I'll watch out for him. Thank you, and good day.
No problem. Number 7237 Quebec, traffic 11 o'clock, 3 miles northeastbound in experimental VFR, 5,400 climbing.
Cessna 7237 Quebec, we have a traffic inside 11 o'clock, climbing.
37 Quebec, roger.
I think the word climbing is safe here. All right.
November 44 X-ray, you still up?
Yeah, actually, I still am, and I'm well above him now.
No worries, yeah, the track's a factor. Did you want flight following to your destination, or are you just hanging out?
I'm just going to hang out, do some quick avionics test. You'll hear back from me in 3 minutes, and I'm ready to come back and land.
All right, 844 X-ray, roger. Do you have an altitude you'll be climbing to? Only own up to 10.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to be canceling all services with you, please, now, and I'll be going up to 17.5 so I stay out of trouble with the Class Alpha.
All right, no worries, 844 X-ray. Radar service terminate squawk VFR, and frequency change approved. Call me on your way back.
See you in a few minutes. Bye. Okay, so we're out of Metro's here.
Traffic 755 Romeo.
Out of Metro's here, and we're climbing. So what I'm really doing right now is operating the airplane, and I'm not trying to compare GPS altitude to Garmin altitude right now, but on the replay, the video after landing, we'll certainly plot a little chart of GPS altitude versus what I call Garmin altitude, or what aviation calls true altitude. Okay, so just a quick little review of what's going on here. I'm at 123 knots. My Garmin's indicating 115 knots. So we're within 7 knots or so of my synthetic indicated airspeed and my pitot indicated airspeed. Angle of attack is in the green, climbing at about 11 degrees pitch up right here. I'm now coming through 15,000 feet on the Garmin's, which does have the correct barometric pressure entered. And look, I'm at 15,800 GPS altitude. So I'm way higher than we think, even though my barometric pressure is entered correctly and my pitot static system is properly tuned. I've had it checked in a shop. So what we're seeing is that lapse rate that we set up for, that this is designed for, is the most pessimistic possible lapse rate. So I'm always a little higher than I think. We're lower. And that's the safety that's designed into this system. We're always higher than we think when that lapse rate is non-standard. Right, this is a generator indicator error. What I can do is turn off the generator and turn on the alternator, so we don't have a weird indication there that might be distracting. It's a little sensor, the little voltage or amperage sensor vibrates loose sometimes. I'm thinking that looked at. Okay, we're rapidly approaching class alpha. I need an IFR to go above 18,000, so I'm going to level off at 17,900 on my properly calibrated Garmin display. So this is just about as high as I'm allowed to fly VFR, 17.9. Okay, I'm within 100 feet of our class alpha right now. So this is as high as I can legally fly on the Garmin. This is as high as I can legally fly, period, without going IFR, which I'm not going to take the trouble to do because that's on this experiment. So we're at 17,900. We're within just 100 feet of that 18,000 foot class alpha, but our true altitude, as you see, is 18,720. Now some people might think this is a class alpha airspace bus, but it's not, because that 18,000 foot class alpha starts at 18,000 feet according to the air data altimeter that we use in aviation. So that means our true altitude is 18,720 as we find out from the GPS. So the error up here, I'm at 17.9. I'll just go to exactly 17.9 here on the Garmin's. At 17.9 on the Garmin's, and that is 18,740. So it's an 840 foot error. We are 840 feet higher than we think we are from the Garmin display. There's nothing wrong with the Garmin. There's nothing wrong with my flying. There's nothing wrong with my pitot static system. We just have an airplane here. It's designed according to standard aviation protocol, which is to use the most pessimistic possible lapse rate. Okay, I'm going to switch fuel tanks here. Okay, we'll switch to the left fuel tank, and now we're going to bring it on around back home. I'm at high idle when the air conditioning, because the airplane is going to float just a little bit down the runway. A little bit of a float there. Beta action to get us slowed down. I barely was touching the brakes there. That beta, that's the prop. It's the prop coming into reverse. Hear it? I'll do it again. Hopefully that showed up in the microphone. Okay, so there we go. That was a quick flight in an evolution. Just a quick look at the systems, which as you see, quite simple. Now as I'm taxiing back, I will go climate control off. Circuit breakers off. DC power off, which is all this stuff. Bleed air off. Door seals off. Looks like I have quite a bit more fuel on the left side here. Says I climbed on one tank, landed on the other. I think we know which one burned more fuel, right? Alright. Now the air conditioning is off, we can go to low idle. I got my Tesla out of the hangar this time. A friend of mine's leaf blowing the hangar. Alright. Alternator off, pull the engine.